Greetings, I'm Teresa, and I'm 40 years old. Recently, my father-in-law Gregory passed away, and it was devastating. His death, however, brought something unexpected back into my life, my ex-husband, Jack, the man who had cheated on me. Let me take you back to how it all started. Jack and I first met on a dating app when I was still in college. I was feeling restless, tired of dorm life, and looking for a distraction. Jack, 2 years older and already working, seemed like the perfect escape. We matched, went on a few dates, and soon ended up at a bar one night. After too many drinks, we found ourselves at his place. Fast forward 3 months, I missed a period. Fear crept in. Several positive pregnancy tests later, I broke the news to Jack. To my surprise, he didn't run. He said he'd help raise the child. Over the following months, Jack transformed. He became attentive, caring, and gentle, making me fall for him hard. When I proposed, he didn't hesitate to say yes. My family, however, was a different story. They've always been overprotective, and neither the pregnancy nor the engagement sat well with them. During Jack's first meeting with my family, I could feel their disapproval. My mother, in particular, was blunt. "We love you, and we care for you, but I don't think this boy is the right one." I knew part of it was because of the pregnancy. She added, "We're not thrilled you're pregnant at 17, but it's your choice. We're concerned more about Jack. He may not be the right fit for you." I thanked them for supporting my decision to keep the baby, but I stood firm. Jack is the father, and he's been nothing but supportive. If you continue to oppose him, he might walk away. Please consider that, because when things get tough, it'll just be me and the baby. Though they trusted me, I could feel their disappointment. Jack and I left, and I carried the weight of their mistrust with me. I thought about uninviting them from the wedding, but Jack convinced me otherwise. Looking back, maybe I should have listened to my mother. Maybe I was just scared of facing single parenthood alone. The wedding came and went without a hitch, largely thanks to Jack's parents, who were supportive and made things easier for me. When the time came to deliver our baby boy, it was a moment of pure joy. Jack stepped up as a father, taking charge of the baby while I finished my degree. He was there through thick and thin, helping me land a job after I graduated. I didn't make as much money as him, but I had a steady income, and that was enough for us. Our son, Jack Jr., was growing up into a beautiful little boy. His first steps, his first words, those were moments of happiness we shared as a family. Despite the ups and downs, we always managed to communicate and co-parent effectively. We had built a life together, and for a decade, we were a happy family. But everything changed one evening. I came home from work and found Jack in bed with another woman. My heart shattered. I packed my things and left that night, moving in with a friend and making arrangements for our son. The next day, I filed for divorce and sought custody, along with child support. When I handed Jack the divorce papers, he was furious, demanding we keep things amicable. But after his betrayal, there was no going back. Jack's true colors emerged after the split. He refused to pay child support, claiming he never wanted our son in the first place. His words stung, but I held my ground. I told him the courts would decide. It was painful to realize that Jack had never truly loved me. He had stayed out of obligation, and that knowledge hurt more than anything. If he'd been honest from the start, maybe I could have turned to my family for support instead of wasting 10 years. The court hearings were tough, but I fought back against Jack's accusations that I had trapped him into marriage. In the end, the court ordered him to pay child support starting in 2 months. Despite the emotional scars from the divorce, I was relieved. At least my son would have the financial support he needed. I've come to terms with the fact that Jack wasn't the man I thought he was, but I'm stronger now. For me, and for my son, life moves forward. A week had passed since the divorce, and as the new month rolled in, it was time for Jack to provide child support. Unfortunately, I found myself unable to reach him. Despite multiple attempts, his phone seemed to be out of service, and he had blocked me on all social media platforms. Even after creating a new account, I discovered I was blocked again. Desperate for answers, I called his workplace, only to learn that he had resigned 2 weeks prior and was relocating overseas. Anxiety surged through me as I consulted my lawyer about how to proceed with a spouse who had vanished from the country. The lawyer suggested that if we could locate Jack, we could strengthen the child support order. The problem was, I had no idea where he was. My lawyer mentioned the possibility of involving government resources, but it sounded like a long, expensive, and unpredictable process. With no knowledge of Jack's whereabouts, I was left to navigate parenthood alone, and my emergency savings were dwindling. I recalled my parents' warnings against being with Jack, which made it impossible to seek their help. Turning to friends felt awkward, leaving Jack's parents as my only option. I had once shared a close bond with them, and when Jack and I informed them about our divorce, they seemed more concerned about my well-being than their sons. They were financially stable, and I viewed them as a potential support system. I wasn't expecting much, just a contribution equivalent to what Jack was supposed to provide, even if it was a reduced amount. Reluctantly, I chose to handle things on my own for as long as I could. 5 months passed, and I faced mounting challenges just to pay the bills. By the end of the month, I struggled to provide food for my son. Despite the hardship, I clung to the hope that things would improve and began to let go of the idea of asking Jack's parents for help. However, everything changed when my son fell seriously ill and needed to be hospitalized. The medical bills were overwhelming, even with insurance, and I realized I couldn't bear this additional financial strain alone. It became clear that I needed support, so I reached out to Jack's parents. I contacted Alice and explained my situation, and she expressed genuine concern for what I was going through. When I shared Jack's absence and the reasons behind it, they were taken aback and regretted not reaching out sooner. Without hesitation, they invited me to their home and reassured me that they would help. Grateful for their kindness, I accepted their offer, knowing Alice was eager to lend a hand. A wave of relief washed over me, and once my tears subsided, I quickly packed a small suitcase for both my son and me. We headed to Alice and Gregory's house, where Alice greeted us with warm hugs at the door, and Gregory welcomed us with enthusiasm. As we sat down for lunch, the atmosphere was light and casual. We made sure to include my son in the conversation, shielding him from any distressing topics. After the meal, he happily ran off to play, leaving the three of us to discuss the events of the past 5 months. They shared their frustration over Jack's departure and their disappointment upon discovering his affair. Their anger only grew when they learned about his abandonment of fatherhood. They expressed their irritation with me for not reaching out sooner, and I admitted my mistake. Gregory was eager to provide more financial assistance than Jack had owed me, but I hesitated to accept such a substantial amount. I turned to Gregory, expressing my concerns. He remained resolute, viewing this as a way to compensate for the challenges I faced over the past 5 months, especially as a young, single mother. Gregory, there's really no need for such a large sum, I insisted. Consider it a reimbursement for what you've spent during this time, he replied. You're raising your child alone, and it's not fair for you to sacrifice so much when your child's grandparents can offer support. Gregory held his ground, insisting, there's no limit when it comes to you both. All we ask is one favor in return. Whatever you need, I promise, I assured them. He emphasized the importance of staying in touch. They wanted me to promise that if I ever needed anything, no matter what, I should reach out to them. I willingly agreed, and they comforted me, saying, we don't want either of you to struggle. Thank you for bringing us closer to our grandchild. It means a lot. Things had been looking up lately, and I realized how crucial financial stability was. During my marriage to Jack, we struggled to make ends meet, but now, with more stability, I could provide my son with so many opportunities. Years passed, and my son grew into a remarkable young man, forming a strong bond with his grandparents. Every weekend, we enjoyed family outings, making unforgettable memories together. Our lives thrived thanks to Gregory and Alice's unwavering support and my improved job situation. 5 years after Jack left, my son started working. However, shortly after, Gregory's health declined. He suffered a stroke but received prompt medical care and made a recovery. Determined to set his affairs in order, Gregory began updating his will, and I helped him through the process. 3 months after my son turned 16, tragedy struck. Gregory had a heart attack and passed away before help could arrive. It was devastating to realize that had we recognized the signs just moments earlier, he might still be with us. His funeral took place a week later, and we gradually shared the heartbreaking news with Gregory and Alice's extended family. Alice was deeply affected, so my son and I took on most of the responsibilities. We felt it was the least we could do. The funeral was a solemn occasion, attended by many who came to pay their respects. It was heartwarming to see the love for Gregory and to witness Alice's smile return as she reconnected with family. Although my son and I were largely unknown to those present, We were comforted by the warmth and support that surrounded us during this difficult time. A week later, we gathered at Alice's house to go over Gregory's will. Just as we began, Jack unexpectedly appeared at the front door. I was the one to answer, and seeing him there made my stomach drop. A wave of emotions washed over me: anger, shock, disbelief. I struggled to find my voice. Jack barely acknowledged me as he strode past and entered the house. After collecting myself, I firmly closed the door and approached him in the living room. Alice gasped in surprise at his arrival, her expression pale. I decided to confront him directly, asking, "What are you doing here? As far as I know, they're no longer your in-laws. You're the one who left and cut ties with your family. Now you show up just for your inheritance? That's pretty low." Jack replied, "I'm here to claim what's rightfully mine." "Seriously? You vanished for 8 years, leaving me to raise our child alone, and didn't even check on your parents. Now you're back only for the inheritance? What is wrong with you?" I shot back. "Why should you care about me? I'm still entitled to my share, and your words won't change that." "Can I see the will, Mom?" Jack demanded. "What about the things Dad promised to leave me? He said I'd get half of everything he owns. I just want to know if he followed through and when I can expect my share." As I reviewed the will, I discovered that Jack was not mentioned at all. Gregory had chosen to communicate his wishes through a letter. Jack's reaction was one of frustration, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction as his indifferent expression morphed into anger. I was all too familiar with the contents of that letter. I had helped Gregory draft it. The letter expressed his disappointment and frustration with Jack. In it, Gregory conveyed his commitment to guiding Jack toward becoming a better person, emphasizing the values of loyalty and accountability. He outlined the support he had provided to my son and me since Jack's departure, and he explained his intention to divide his estate into 3 shares, one for Jack, one for Alice, and one for our son. However, since Jack was absent, he planned to reallocate Jack's share to us and donate the remainder to a charity supporting single mothers. Watching Jack's growing frustration, I struggled to suppress a chuckle. His face turned red as his irritation mounted. It was almost comical that he thought he was entitled to inherit anything from his father. Gregory, a man of principles, believed in accountability and made sure everyone faced the consequences of their actions, something he had done with Jack's past mistakes. It was disheartening to realize that Gregory had altered his will because he understood Jack so well, predicting that Jack would return only for the inheritance. When Jack approached me, fuming and blaming me for talking to Gregory, I assured him that I hadn't swayed Gregory's decisions. I emphasized that Jack was responsible for his own actions, and it was Gregory's choice to exclude him from the will. Despite Jack's threats to contest his father's will, I stood firm, reiterating that I had no role in those choices. "I will rightfully receive what belongs to me. Go ahead and contest it. I have solid evidence that you broke court orders by leaving the country, and I can prove that Gregory used funds from your share to support his grandchild. If you pursue this, you could face fines or even jail time." "Jack, please be quiet. If you're finished, I kindly ask you to leave. You've taken enough from me, but it's all due to your own actions. Leave now, or I'll call the police. We're already struggling with Gregory's loss, and your attitude is making this so much harder. Please go." Jack stormed out, hurling insults as he left. Alice looked ready to confront him, but I managed to calm her down. Thankfully, my son wasn't with us that day. I doubted he would have handled Jack's behavior as well as I did. I have no idea what became of Jack after that, and honestly, I'm not concerned. The legacy Gregory left for my son is substantial, enough to cover his college expenses without the burden of loans. I'm grateful for Gregory's foresight. Once my son starts college, Alice and I are considering a short getaway, just the 2 of us. We've faced many challenges together, and we feel it's time to embrace some joy. Things are finally taking a positive turn in our lives. After everything Jack put me through, I never imagined my life would unfold this way, but here I am. Remember, no matter how much you try to evade the consequences of your actions, they will eventually catch up with you, even if it takes a while. Be kind, do good for those around you, and you'll discover the joy that life has to offer.